Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with Black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk.
She's losing it, gang. They're all losing it. Mika's crying on live TV. James Carville's having mental meltdowns. And now Joy Reid. They're all beginning to recognize the seemingly inevitable. Donald J. Trump is now the favorite to win in November. And they're absolutely coming apart. So butter your popcorn, sit back, and let's watch the far left lose it.
At this point, you can't call what Trump is running a campaign. As friend of the show David Corn points out in Mother Jones, what Trump and J.D. Vance and House and Senate Republicans are running is a massive disinformation campaign aimed at warping Americans' reality. And they're doing it with violent, terrifying, and sometimes bizarre conspiracy theories that set the table for maybe armed resistance to a Kamala Harris win or mass acceptance of American fascism.
Stop. Let's stop right there. Because I want to deconstruct for you the kind of hysterics that passes legitimate political commentary on a comparably clownish network that tries to pass itself off as a legitimate news source. What's so fascinating when you have the unfortunate experience of watching or listening to someone like this is you find yourself encountering a pathological personality that clearly gets lost in her own unhinged emotional escalation. And she does it by beginning first with absurd premises that couldn't even remotely be objectively defended. You'll notice she actually began by saying Trump is not running a campaign, which of course he is. But she made that clear, quote, "You can't call what Trump is running a campaign." Those were her exact words, that if I might plagiarize like Kamala does. And then in the next sentence, she quoted some left-wing loon from Mother Jones who claimed that Trump was running a disinformation campaign. So technically, which is it? Is he running a campaign or not? You see, this is where a lunatic like Joy Reid, she roots her rant in absurd premises, claiming Trump is not running a campaign, but he is, but it's a disinformation campaign, which of course can be a political campaign. Just ask Kamala Harris. So that's where her hysterics begin. She begins with absurd premises, and then she escalates and compounds on that absurdity, saying that there are, in effect, only two possible reasons for Trump running such a campaign that's not, in fact, a campaign. And it's to either justify armed resistance to a Kamala Harris win or mass acceptance of American fascism, which again is patently absurd. Again, even granting her premise, disinformation campaigns can be run for all kinds of reasons, for a whole host. There are innumerable reasons. There's nothing specific to Trump that renders him running a disinformation campaign like this for only two reasons. So she begins in absurdity, and then she rhetorically escalates those absurdities into even more ridiculous absurdities. And that's basically the pattern of this entire rant. You start absurd, and then you get caught up in the whirlwind of these escalating hysterics, and you won't believe who she's actually blaming for embracing Trump's supposed racist fascism. Natural disasters are the new reality, folks. From the Maui fires to record-level hurricanes, we're seeing catastrophic disasters take out entire towns in 24 hours with minimal warning, resulting in a lack of basic resources. Now, I get it. We're all wired to think it ain't going to happen here, right? And then in a blink, you're in survival mode. Being prepared in advance is your best defense against the unexpected. And clearly, we can't rely on our government. The wellness company's emergency kits completely remove the gatekeeper and subside panic by providing you with a personalized mini pharmacy in the convenience of your own home. Bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, strep throat, respiratory illnesses, you no longer have to be at the mercy of someone else to help you. You keep a fire extinguisher handy in case of a fire, right? Well, it's probably a good idea to have some basic medicines in a safe place in the event you need them. Same mindset, different product. Getting an emergency kit is fully digital, all from the convenience of your own couch. You fill out an intake form, a pharmacist reviews and approves it, then you receive the kits in 2 weeks. The medical board approved guidebook crafted by Dr. Peter McCullough tells you exactly what to do. This is preparedness simplified. Invest in your family's self-managed insurance plan. Click on the link below or go to twc.health/Turley. Use code Turley and save up to $60 off and get free shipping at checkout. Click on that link right now.
Trump and Republicans backed by far right-wing billionaires like Elon Musk and right-wing media and anti-woman manosphere podcasts are creating social media or gaming social media apps like X Twitter in Trump's favor and pumping disinformation into the brains of Trump supporters. Not quite foreign interference, but not exactly different from what Vladimir Putin would do. And in many ways, the disinformation campaign is working. Base Republicans today believe everything from Democrats secretly manipulating the weather from a secret base in Alaska to Trump being incapable of losing this election. He's winning in a landslide.
Now, again, you'll notice only someone who gets as hysterical as Joy Reid can do what she just did. What did she just do? Did you catch it? She mocked Trump voters for believing in conspiracy theories literally seconds after she herself invoked the Russian collusion hoax. She compares Trump's supposed interference in this election with Vladimir Putin, but then turns around and claims we're the conspiracy theorists.
And some Democrats are starting to believe the disinformation too. Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with Black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk. Yes, this race will be far too close. Because unfortunately, we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among Black and brown men too. This happens to be a global phenomenon as women become more economically independent and seek positions of power.
So now it's Black and brown folk. Black and brown people. Small pockets, of course. Small pockets. I ain't saying it's widespread. No, it's definitely them white folk. No, just small pockets of brown and Black folk, but certainly big enough for me to rant about. So it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. But we got even Black and brown people buying into this fascism stuff. So the reason why Trump is doing so well is because of Black and brown. No, not just Black and brown people, Black and brown men. That's the key. It's men. It's men of all shapes and sizes and colors that are embracing his fascist talk because of the rise of independent women seeking power. Which, of course, assumes that independent women seeking power can't be fascist. They're somehow uniquely immune from fascism. You know, when I heard that, I couldn't help but think of headlines like this. This is what the far left activists over at The Guardian write about Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. They're openly calling her a neo-fascist. Giorgia Meloni, a strong, independent woman who sought power and won power, according to Joy Reid's ilk over at The Guardian, are every bit as fascist as those Black and brown men. I thought strong, independent women seeking power were creating fascists. Very small pockets, of course, very, very small pockets of Black and brown men. But those strong women weren't themselves fascists. And by the way, if you think it's just The Guardian slipping up on the tortured narrative we're hearing here, nope, sorry, there are plenty of other far-left news outlets who didn't get Joy Reid's ranting memo. Oh, and by the way, it's not just Giorgia Meloni. No, how about Marine Le Pen of France? She's the face of French fascism. Say that 5 times fast. Or how about the supposed neo-Nazi Alice Weidel of Germany's AfD? And as far as this far-right secret internal poll showing that Trump is poised for a landslide, Joy, you mean polls like this one?
We are just a little more than 3 weeks away until Election Day, and as of today, the race has become a dead heat. New NBC News polling released today has the race tied with Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, both at 48% nationally among registered voters. It's a noticeable drop from last month's NBC poll that had Harris leading Trump by 5 points. Now, the comparison couldn't be more stark compared to the last time an incumbent vice president ran for the top of the ticket. At this point in 2000, then Vice President Al Gore had a 60% approval rating compared to Harris's now 43%. And while Gore won the popular vote, the infamous Bush versus Gore ruling from the Supreme Court allowed Bush to win the Electoral College.
Yeah, that was an NBC poll. That was a poll from Joy's own network. And you'll note that this time last election cycle in mid-October of 2020, that same poll had Biden up 14 points, according to MSNBC, Joy's own network. And yet, as Joy well knows, November of that year turned out to be a lot closer than that. Trump came within 40,000 votes of winning, even after all the puff polls that Joy Reid's network was pushing and that Joy Reid is now suddenly complaining about. Even after all the shenanigans, it was the second closest election in our nation's history, with Trump getting more votes than any incumbent ever. So if Joy's own network is finding out that the two candidates are now in a dead heat, actually Trump is up one nationally with all the candidates included, like Jill Stein. Again, that's not a private poll, that's NBC. If that's the case, how do you think Trump's going to do this come November? If he came within 40,000 votes after a poll from NBC showing him up 14, how's he going to do in the shadow of the same poll now showing him tied? This is what really has Reid freaking out. She obviously does not have the intellectual or emotional maturity to handle another Trump win, not even the thought of it. And she's doing everything she possibly can to blame others for her own partisan misery. The irony is that in doing so, she only ends up making herself all the more miserable. And ironically, becomes herself the spreader, the purveyor of a ridiculous disinformation campaign.